In this episode, Project Low Fairmont comes off the jackstands for the first time in 4 months. Welcome to the channel. My name's Grant Tommy. This is Straight Six Fan, where I like to focus on budget-minded, relatable, creative builds. A little something I like to call offbeat hot rodding, helping you build your hot rod and your confidence. Today we are attempting to get Project Low Fairmont, my current offbeat hot rod, off the jack stands for the first time since I think June 10th. It is October 6th today. Never thought it'd take 4 months to do this, but nonetheless, here we are, and the only two things I have to do while it's still on jack stands at the moment is bend up a rear brake line to get from the passenger delivery point, passenger side delivery point of the brake line, to the middle section where the Mark VII rear end wants to pick up a brake line. So I need to kind of bend up this coat hanger. I've already previously done it, so I knew how big of a piece to order or buy at O'Reilly's. But I straightened this back out so I could make sure I got the proper length. So I gotta kind of rebend this, as well as adjust the transmission modulator valve. This was a suggestion given to me by Impact's Garage and Gaming of how to help the shift points on the C4 way back almost a year ago when I did the laughable 0 to 60 video. And if you haven't seen that, that's up here. But yeah, those are the two things I want to accomplish today. Then I can get this thing on the ground. Doesn't mean I can drive it just yet because I've got some other things to do with the brake system. But we were trying to get it on the ground. So you'll have to stick around to the very end to see if that happens today or not. I think it's going to, but I'm recording this before I know that outcome. So sit back tight and follow along. The first thing I have to do though before bending this up is I want to put in place the bracket that comes off the Mark VII axle and attach it to the body using some teeth screws.
Before we get too carried away with the brake line stuff, let's move on to how to adjust the transmission modulator valve on a Ford C4.
First thing you want to do, locate the transmission modulator. It can be found at the rear of the transmission. You'll want to follow a small rubber vacuum hose that connects to it. Once you have found that, pull off by hand and insert into it a flathead screwdriver until it seats into the slot of the adjustment screw. To firm up and delay the upshift of the transmission, you'll want to turn the screwdriver in a clockwise fashion. It's suggested you don't go more than 4 turns in either direction. To be safe, I'm going to back it off 3/4 of a turn. As I mentioned, I previously had already mocked up the coat hanger, so I knew what to purchase. However, this straightened out wound up being 28 inches long. Power stroke. And at the parts store, the closest length they had was 30 inches long. So I'm going to work my way backwards from the axle drop to the passenger side main line. And whatever excess I have, I'm going to coil up on the passenger side end. Now I recommend you take your time on the template, because in a way, you kind of only get one shot at doing this. To form the hard brake line, we are using this tool from Geno Development. I'll leave a link down below to Amazon.com where you can pick up one of these for yourself. Only $15, but this I figured is the appropriate tool for the appropriate amount of work. So let's give it a shot. Okay, so as I started bending, I did end up accidentally getting a little long on this end. You can see, let's try to, you can see I'm like about a 1/4 inch long. So I'm trying to handle it. However, I did run into snag number 1, and that is at this fitting for 3/16 line. Different than the one I took off. However, luckily I'm in luck. I did borrow a brake line flaring tool from a friend of mine. And I do have my own adapters that I purchased in anticipation of this job. Got the right fastener, or fitting, I guess, for this 3/16 inch line. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this, take this guy off. We'll shorten it up according to my template, and we'll reflare it, yada yada yada. Okay, now I'm back from a run to O'Reilly's because the more I thought about it, the more I realized I was gonna have two male ends coming together off the passenger side of the Fairmont and my new brake line. So I went and bought a little union to go 3/16 to 3/16. And now knowing that I have to recut and flare one end of the tube anyway, I rebent my template up because I can make that much shorter and more direct now. So I have my line cut, and I cut it extra long in order that I understand how the brake flaring tool works. And it seems to be, I have it marked here, for this is what is the proper length, but after practicing with the flaring tool, here's the magic distance is basically, I want to go beyond basically as tall as this little press fitting, press, not fitting, but press tool, I guess you'd say, is. So I will kind of line that up past my mark, and we will cut it that much past my mark. So the battery's on the action cam ran out, but there it is. There's that brake line. Not as pretty as I thought it was going to be after the mock-up, but it was a little bit longer than it needed to be, so kind of had to make do. But yeah, now I can take this thing off jack stands. The only thing I have left under here, I have to tighten these guys up once I get the car on its own weight, and I also have to mess with the parking brake, but that's not necessarily a thing that needs to be done now. Being an automatic, however, for my first test drive, I would like the parking brake to work in case I need a backup plan. But first things first, I gotta clean up all the crap that's underneath this car, and let's get this off the jack stand. car is finally back on its own weight, and I gotta be honest, I'm digging the way the stance is. Now, I would maybe, if it could be just a shade lower, just so the top of that lip of the fender was just dead even with the top of the tire, that would make it even better, but I'm pretty happy with it. It just, I can't believe how long it took to get to this point, but we're here and I love it. Now, the 5/8 inch lug nut spacers are not enough. The tire is still barely clearancing the strut tower, or the strut. Based on the clearance I still have back here, I'm actually now kind of debating going back to the Charger wheels, which I know I flipped out about earlier in the summer. But I think what I'm going to do actually is probably get one of them mounted up on a used tire, so I have a spare regardless. And then that way I can just test it out on the back, on the front, because I know it's going to work on the front. So I'm really tempted to give that a shot and try it out before I go cutting the studs for the front. Yeah, I have just basically right at 3/4 of an inch left between the inner lip of the fender and that tire, which the Charger wheels would basically put it dead on, which would mean I would have to roll the fender, which I didn't really want to do if I didn't have to, but I think I would much rather do that than put mini miles on the front with spacers. So anyway, leave me a comment below. Tell me, guys, what you think about that idea, and what would you do? So with that, I think I'm going to call it a day, at least for the sake of filming. I still need to go torque down the control arm, upper and lower control arm on the rear axle. So the reason I wouldn't have done it hanging up in the air is it was putting the bushings in a bind. So now that it's on its own weight, we know that everything's nice and square, so I'm going to do that. But I can cross off some things off the old 5-lug swap list. Again, I can't believe this has taken 4 months, but we can get rid of the rear brake lines. Still have a parking brake to do. I might cold start this today, so re-hook up to the battery terminal, just because it hasn't run in 4 months. I should have been doing this once a month. Anyway, you won't know because I'm not taping that. But then after that, I can cross off install 17s, sort of. And then after that, I need to do my master cylinder swap, and then what's actually not on here is delete the factory proportioning valve. Is one last thing I need to do. But that's going to do it for this episode, guys. Reminder, Car Guy and 6-Fan Show is a regular. It's Thursdays. It's with Old Car Auto Guy. Check out his channel if you haven't already. Like, comment, share this episode. I don't care which one you do, whichever you're most comfortable with. I appreciate that. And if you've enjoyed this and you think you want to come back for more, consider subscribing if you haven't already. Lastly, best way to support the channel is either checking out affiliate links below, or pick up a straight 6-fan Pistons tee, or a 30, 60s, 198 Slant 6 inspired t-shirt. That link to my Spreadshirt store is below. That's going to do it for this episode. Until next time, peace out. In this episode, Project Low Fairmont. Welcome to the channel. My name's Grant Tommy. This is Straight 6-Fan, where I like to focus on budget-minded, relatable, creative builds. Wait for the Ram to drive by. Welcome to the channel. My name's Grant Tommy. This is Straight 6-Fan, where I like to focus on budget-minded, relatable, creative builds. Ugh.